سيكون جسرنا ممتد إلى دولة المجر وبداية الاكتشافات المجرية لمصر القديمة عقب صدور كتاب المستشرق المجري سمويل ديتشي بعنوان تاريخ مصر المختصر عام 1803. واليوم سيكون لنا لقاء مع عالم الآثار المجري الدكتور تماش بتاش، والذي يعمل بالحفائر الخاصة بالبعثة المجرية في منطقة شيخ عبد القرنة بالبر الغربي بالأقصر. المنطقة هي منطقة سكنية تشكل الطرف الشمالي في البر الغربي نظرا لموقعها المركزي واحتوائها على العديد من الأماكن المهجورة القابلة للسكن التي توفرها المقابر الفرعونية القديمة. تحولت علوة شيخ عبد القرنة إلى منطقة مسكونة بكثافة من قبل الرهبان. كثيرا ما يتم العثور على أستراكة من الحجر الجيري أو تكاثير الفخار خلال أعمال الحفائر في مجموعات المقابر الموجودة في جبانة طيبة.
Welcome Dr. Tomasz Bach to our program. I'm having a pleasure today to be with us. You are a professor of Egyptology in one of the Hungarian universities, and the name is
Loran.
It's a very difficult name.
Yes. It has an interesting spelling too, so yes. No, it's a great opportunity for me to have to share our work and to have a lot of people have an idea of what we are doing or what we're trying to do here.
First of all, you have, as an Hungarian professor in Egyptology, a very large and deep relation with Egyptology. And we have a great relation with the Hungarian professors in the field of Egyptology since 1907. We have many Egyptologists who were excavating in Egypt, and you are still doing excavation in Thebes.
Yes, yes. Hungarian Egyptology now can look back on more than 100 years of history. We actually had a professor who started teaching Egyptology already in 1907, so it was Eduard Mahler, who is, I have to say that he was a relative of the famous composer Gustav Mahler, who is a very famous classical composer. It is the same family. He originally started out as a mathematician, as you know, and so when he started going into the field of ancient studies, his main field of interest was chronology, because coming from a mathematical background with a little astrology, and astronomy, so his main works were on Egyptian chronology. Okay. But he started teaching Egyptology as a language more than 100 years ago, so we are very proud of that tradition, that we have that at our university. Not many, actually, European university can boast with that, I have to say.
Dr. Tomasz, you was one of the students of Dr. Kakushi, and still now, most of the Egyptologists who are in Hungary, they are using the same tradition of dealing with the students and to take them and to join them during the missions.
Yes. Unfortunately, we don't have a very continuous history of excavating. We were unlucky, but for instance, we participated in the UNESCO campaign of the salvage campaign in Nubia, and Professor Kakushi, who was a young man then, and he partook in that, he always felt the need to have field work. He said that Egyptology in countries that take it very seriously, they have universities teaching it. They have museums with collections to show the public or even teach objects there. And then you have to have field work, because you have to immerse yourself in the culture with the colleagues, the Egyptian colleagues, foreign colleagues who are all working here. It's a kind of networking, we might say today, in this respect. So he was very adamant. And finally, in 1983, he could get permission to dig in Thebes. And his main aim was not just digging or excavating. He wanted to have a Hungarian presence in fieldwork and to integrate us into this international community, this Egyptian international community, which is Egyptology here in Egypt. And he always stressed that whoever continues the work must always keep this in mind and keep this before him, that we are representing not just ourselves, but also our own community of scientists or Egyptologists.
You are working in TEPS since more than 20 years. Digging there and excavating, and you were joining Dr. Kakushi during his excavation in Egypt.
Yes, when I finished university in 1984, which was a long time ago, my God, how old I am. So anyway, in the next year, because I also studied archaeology and classical archaeology, so he thought that it would be a good idea to have me as well coming along and helping. So I worked nearly 10 years on his excavations, coming to Egypt every year for the archaeological season. So in '95, with my colleague, Dr. Fabian, we had the opportunity to branch out, because this is what Kakushi said, that now it's time for us to start our, stand on our own legs, start our own projects, which is the normal thing, after you have been an apprentice for a while, then you have to be, your own master. Then I decided to work on another hill in Thebes, which is Sheikh Abdel Gurna, the Ilva of Sheikh Abdel Gurna, and there I chose a tomb which was to my liking, and I was surprised that nobody really wanted to work in it. It was actually Theban tomb 65, which was the latest preserved New Kingdom tomb. It is the last New Kingdom tomb to be preserved with its paintings in it. It dates to the reign of Ramses IX. So basically what we can say about it is it's the end of a tradition, because after the New Kingdom there's a different kind of burial and mortuary culture, as many people know. So I was very much interested in how does a kind of tradition end? Does it go out with a whimper, or does it go out with a bang, so to say?
Dr. Tomasz, you are working since 20 years in TEPS, and you are working in the field very close to the temple of Queen Hatshepsut, Sheikh Abdel Gurna. And you have also your students. Every year you have a new group of students joining you. What are the most important advices you are telling to your students?
Well, first of all is that they have to have empathy for the place, for the people, for the times. The other thing is that they have to be interested in what they are doing, because if you're not interested, then there is no point in doing it. And the other thing is that they have to really concentrate 24/7 when they are here, because we can't take anything away, just what we take with us in ourselves, or on paper or on a computer, So they have to document everything, look at everything, really absorb everything, because this is what they will be working on for the rest of the year. So this is what one thing. The other thing is that everything is interesting. This is a place, Luxor, I mean the biggest monumental area of the world, and the time depth is incredible, from the Old Kingdom to modern times. I have to say, I mean the village was removed just a couple of years ago. And when I started working there, we were still working in the middle of a village with donkeys and goats and people, going about with their everyday lives, bringing water or whatever. So it was really something fantastic to grow up with, I should say. Now it's a little different, so the young people don't experience that much, but I think it's something big. It really touches them when they come for the first time, because one thing is when you sit in a classroom and read about things or see nice slides or a PowerPoint, but the other thing is when you really touch things and you see
it's
the
real
context.
Life.
The context when you see, and it's different from a museum where you have an object, by itself. But here the objects are with other objects, and sometimes beautiful objects are with very ugly objects together, and you see a part of ancient Egyptian culture which you don't experience anywhere else. Because in a film or in a museum, they are selected for you by a curator or a director. But here in the field, you see them together, and then you can judge by yourself what you will take with you.
يعد القدماء المصريون هم أول علماء المصريات، بداية من الملك تحتمس الرابع الذي قام بإزالة الرمال من حول جسد أبو الهول تحقيقاً لما رآه يناشده فيه بذلك. وقد ترك تحتمس الرابع لوحة يحكي تفاصيل هذا الحلم. قدم علماء المصريات في القرون الوسطى العديد من الإسهامات في كشف أسرار الحضارة المصرية القديمة. وبداية من القرن الثالث عشر بدأ الباحثين الأوروبيين وكتاب الرحلات تسجيل ملاحظتهم على الآثار المصرية بالرغم من الأخطاء، ولكن لبعضهم إسهامات جليلة نتجت من اتباعهم طرق علمية.
We have a great and deep relation between Hungary and Egypt in the field of Egyptology since a long time ago. And you told me that you found already some funds of Egypt in Hungary.
Yes, part of Hungary was part of the Roman Empire, so we were part of the same empire. Well, I could say historically we were then later part of the same Turkish Empire, but that's beside the point. So anyway, during the Roman period, it seems that there was a cult, for instance, there was a cult of Isis. So we have a temple dedicated to Isis in one of our cities, which is very famous. We have some objects which were part of this cult. So we have some very beautiful bronze, for instance, vessels. And then we have people we actually cannot identify because we only see their sarcophagi and their skeletons, but they were buried in a manner akin to late Roman Egyptian mummies.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things was that they had mummy masks, which not many people know, that they used the same custom as they found it in Hawara and other places in the Roman period in Egypt. Yeah.
Very interesting. So let's move to Tabs and Sheikh Abdul Qurna, and we are talking about your tombs there, or tombs. You have always the name of the tombs is Titi.
Yes, when originally, finally, one of the inspectors in 1913 started to register the tombs because they had to make a register to what they had to protect or what they had to renew or work. So they started numbering them. So they used TT as a short for Theban tomb. So it's always Theban tomb 1 to approximately 400 they went up to. Now I have to say Egyptologists who work in the area, now we number around more than 1,000 tombs we know about. So the numbering stopped at 4 something and now but of course they were always numbering the nice, beautiful painted ones or the ones you could really look at. The other tombs, many of those tombs are just shafts or undecorated or even destroyed, cave-like, grotto-like things. So in the area where I work, I also found some shaft tombs, for instance, and one of the major finds I made was a shaft tomb which contained the very, very fragmented and broken up remains of the burial of a viceroy of Kush, of Nubia. He was a viceroy who served under Hatshepsut. And it was very interesting that when I found this burial place with the small fragments and the name and the broken canopic jars, that's the same year when the French found a statue fragment of the same viceroy in Kerma. So it's such a coincidence, and now we have somebody who we didn't know about just came out to the historical limelight, So now we have one more viceroy there. So it's interesting because this shaft was right beside the high priest of Amun, Hapuseneb's tomb, which we also worked in, who was the high priest under Hatshepsut. A very, very much destroyed tomb, I have to say, but it's due to the technique, not to people. It probably earthquakes because you probably know the famous Senenmut, who was the favorite. Yeah. He also has a tomb very near the chapel. And it's also the same way, destroyed in the same way. And when we looked at it, and also when the Americans who were working in Senenmut looked at it, that what happened was that the technique that how they built up the walls was fragile. So if there was any earth movement, they immediately, the decoration fell off like a curtain, you know, when you let it go.
You told me you are working inside the tomb with this paintings, and you are restoring some part of the tomb.
Yes, we have to, and we are going to increase our restorative efforts from now on much more. I mean, we're going to have more restorers, and we're going to have more Egyptian restorers as well joining us, because well, the long-term idea is to open some of these tombs to the public for people to, you know, to enjoy them as much as others. So some people say that there are too many tombs open in Luxor. I can't agree, because each tomb is different, because the ancient Egyptians themselves wanted them to look different, because they wanted to differ from the neighbor, you know. They wanted it to reflect themselves better. So they are not the same, and especially TT65, the tomb of this Imiseba from the end of the New Kingdom, is quite unique, because it's unique because of two things. One is that it doesn't have tomb scenes painted on the walls, but it has temple scenes. Actually, he bought scenes from Karnak, Medinet Habu, and he had them painted on his tomb wall, because it was a special idea he had about his tomb. The other thing is that what we are working on is that the person who painted that tomb was the same person who painted the royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings. And we know this from an inscription. So imagine it's like having the best painter of the day. You ask somebody, the best painter, to paint a mural for you in your house or something like that. So, or you know, even in our culture, having the Pope asking Michelangelo or Raphael to paint their private houses or cenotaphs or whatever. So this is a very unique. You don't have this many times in ancient tombs, Egypt, where you can actually know the name of the painter who was working there, or recognize the style he was working in. So this is also why it's unique. And this painter, name of Amenhotep, a very common name, but he painted the famous tombs of Ramses VI, 4, 9, the ones, you know, the very famous and very richly decorated ones in the Valley of the Kings people can see. So it's really a very interesting job, and very it's very multi-channeled work, you know. So from the smallest bit of pottery to the stylistic analysis of a painter. So this is a very wide spectrum of work we have.
وفي أواخر القرن الثامن عشر قام علماء حملة نابليون بتسجيل الحياة النباتية والحيوانية والتاريخية في موسوعة كتاب وصف مصر. مع اكتشاف حجر رشيد وفك رموز الهيروغليفية عام 1822 ميلادية بدأت مرحلة جديدة من علم المصريات بناء على الاكتشافات الحفرية والبرديات واللوحات والنقوش على جدران المعابد.
The most important text you found inside the tomb, you told me he is the high priest of Hatshepsut, the Queen Hatshepsut. Yes. So it's sure you found a lot of very important and secrets about Queen Hatshepsut.
Well, I wish, but unfortunately, as I said, it's much damaged. But he has been known for some time in history. But his tomb originally must have been a fantastic tomb. I mean, we have a very small fragment, for instance, of the Punt scene of Hatshepsut's journey to Punt. And it seems, at least, well, as luck would have it, the part we have is missing in Deir al-Bahri. Because it was damaged there. Yeah. So the Polish colleague is showing me fragments. So actually, they might have been the same. So the same artist could have been doing the two, but we still have to work on that. But actually, this high priest of Hapu-Seneb, who was the high priest under Hatshepsut, he was also, as I already said, the overseer of all the priests, meaning that he had the managerial rights of all the temple lands, which you can imagine was one of, beside the royal lands, it was the richest economic unit in
So
in
he
pharaonic
had a lot
Egypt.
of
So
power.
he had a fantastic power. We know from his biographical text from two statues, one which is today in the Louvre, is that the works he was responsible for. So he worked on Deir al-Bahri, he erected gilded and doors in Karnak temple, he constructed this famous riverine bark of the god Amun in Thebes. So many of these works he enumerates. There's one interesting thing which I have to share is that we don't have his burial place. What we have is actually just the chapel.
You don't know where he's buried?
No, because we have the chapel, which is a large, very large rock-cut chapel. But there is no shaft, no burial apartment. So to this day, we do not know where he was buried, actually. There is one canopic jar today in Turin, but unfortunately, it was collected in the 19th century with other objects. So the provenance of that is completely unknown. So we don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about also your group. During your work, you have a number of students and you have a lot of workers are working with you during your mission, and also inspectors are working with you and joining your mission.
So this is one of the also the best parts of our work. The system is, of course, in Egypt is that every mission gets an inspector. So usually through the years, I've met a lot of inspectors. A lot of them have become very good friends, and we usually get a very good working relationship with them. So there have never been any. And as I said, we usually become friends and meet like old friends when we meet up in places. And they really are a big help in the field, because many things, we cannot organize or cannot achieve. So they are a big help as usual. The workers, it depends on how much debris we have to move, and now because of the regulations, we have to move the debris we excavate or clear out into the desert, so not to leave it there on site, because that's what happened in previous years, and there are a lot of heaps which were left by previous excavators. So it's a lot of work, and it doesn't help. So and the other thing is that the people we employ, they were originally from the village there, and now they are from New Gurna, and they are all very well trained workers. Actually, they are working on excavations most of the year, other missions, so they are quite clear about what they have to do, and sometimes their eyes are much better than ours. So we have the foremen who are working with the Turiya, for instance. Their eyes are fantastic. They can spot the smallest faience bead in the dirt. So so their work is extremely reliable. So we can really work together, and then of course we have the restorers who are now getting more and more involved in the work of foreign missions, and then we have our own students, or of course we have our specialists. So we have restorers coming. Sometimes we have photographers, and we have architects who come do the survey work, because since we are not working in one tomb but in an area, we need of course the surveying and checking all the things, doing models we are trying to do, or now today everybody's trying to model the terrain, 3D models and all that. So we are trying to work with that too.
You are starting your field work at 7 a.m.
Yes, in the morning, of course, because even now, if I remember back, after November 1st, usually the weather became cooler in Egypt. In the past couple of years, my experience is that it's still not that cold in November.
It's warm.
It's getting cooler only by the end of November, right? So anyway, yes, we have to start in early because of the heat, and also our workers. They at 1 or at 2, depending on when we finish. After working with us, they go home. Some of them don't even take lunch, but then they go and work in other places, like they go and work in their fields. So it's completely, although I have to say we work 6 days a week, so only Friday is the off day for us.
What is the most common words you are using when you are working on your field in Arabic
In Arabic.
to the workers and to the people there?
Oh, I use a lot, like, inshallah is of course
Inshallah.
one of that, and things like that, and malesh sometimes.
Malesh.
So there are lots.
And giving instructions?
And yalla bina and
Yalla
things like
bina.
that, of course. Yalla ya gama and etc.
What is the most popular food you are eating during your field work there?
On the site, we sometimes, well, it's very interesting. It's, I'm not,
Aish Shamsi.
Aish Shamsi, but no, I mean to have tameya.
Tameya.
You can only eat tameya in Luxor in the morning.
Not in the afternoon.
Not in the afternoon. You
Okay.
don't get tameya or full in the
Okay.
afternoon and the evening. And I was surprised going from Cairo, where you can get this any time of the day.
Yeah.
And they told me, the local Egyptians told me that no, in Luxor or that area, tameya and full, it's a breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
So they usually have it for breakfast or around 11 or something. And after that, the people who sell them, they close down.
Okay.
So,
Very
so that was
important.
very interesting. So sometimes I have to ask for
Tameya
wait
in
for
the early
tameya and
morning.
food to have a lunch, Exactly.
Hope to see you again and again in Egypt, and to have more excavations and burial funds like mummies. I hope to see a lot of mummies in your site.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
مصر ما زالت مليئة بالعديد والكثير من الأسرار والآثار المصرية القديمة والتي تمثل شغف العالم بها.